Tonight on the menu is cheese steak sliders. So let's start making some buns. First thing that we need to do is get our yeast activated. Now I use yeast a lot, so I buy the big container of it and keep it in the refrigerator. If you don't use as much as I do, using these packets will work just fine. Thing of importance is your water. You want it to be warm, but not hot. So I say like just a touch over room temperature. And then we'll take 2.5 teaspoons of yeast, or 1 package, which is a tiny bit less than that. Not only do we need to activate our yeast, but we need to feed it a little. So I'm going to also add in 2 tablespoons of sugar, and then kind of just give it a stir so that it all gets wet. You can see that it's already getting foamy. That means it's getting started. But I'm just gonna let this be. While this is activating for a good 5 minutes, I'm gonna use this time to collect the rest of my ingredients. The recipe calls for 1/2 cup of warm milk, and I don't necessarily like trying to heat my milk, especially only for 1/2 cup. I'm not a fan of microwave heating. So instead, the milk and the butter have been sitting at room temperature for a while, just to come to temp, so that I don't have to actually try to warm them. We are not going to be using regular all-purpose flour. Instead, we're going to be using bread flour, which I keep in a different container. Why bread flour? Bread flour has more protein in it, and in turn more gluten. So when I'm making buns that need to be hearty and heavier than like sandwich bread, because they need to hold a good amount of filling inside of them and also soak up the moisture from the food. So we're going to use bread flour to create a more dense bread than your regular dinner rolls or sandwich bread. This is how you know that your yeast is activated. Look at how bubbly and foamy it is. That means it's alive and it's ready to grow. Now, the reason that you wouldn't put your butter or milk in cold is because putting in the cold ingredients into your newly wakened up yeast could kill it. So we definitely don't want to do that. And just even because it's a habit of mine, I always put the flour in, half of the flour in first and then my milk and butter, just to kind of protect it. Does it matter? I don't know. But it's the way that I've been doing it for years, and in my mind, it just makes me feel better. Be careful not to crush room temperature butter, because then you'll just have messy fingers. Okay, and then the milk. Just a bit of salt. Just because these are for a savory type meal, I'm going to put just a little bit of my personal mix for Italian seasoning, which is getting a little low, so I'll need to mix up more. Okay, I'm attaching the dough hook, and you'll always want to make sure that you lock it and turn it on low and let this just start coming together. You can see now the majority of the flour that I put in there is wet, so I'm going to stop it and add the rest of the flour. Okay, and I'm just gonna let this go. It's gonna take a while for it to come together. Once it comes together, I'm gonna let it knead for like anywhere from 5 to 8 minutes, just to give it all the mixing it needs. So this has been going for a few minutes, and you can see that it's pretty sticky on the bottom still. So I'm going to sprinkle some flour around in there, just to try to get it to firm up a little. There we go. You see now it's just one continuous piece of dough. It is not sticky. It's going to be a pliable bun. Okay, so while that was mixing, I cleaned off my surface, and I'm going to just sprinkle a little bit of flour on there. And I'm just setting my timer for 1 hour. I'm not going to look at it. I'm just going to go do some other stuff. Well, it's been an hour. You can see that it's risen quite a bit to a nice big loaf. I'm going to use my bench scraper to cut this in half and then into quarters. Okay. And then I just keep going around. Cut each one of those sections. Now, if I was just doing hamburger buns, this is the size I would do. But I'm doing slider buns, so we're actually going to cut them even a little bit smaller. Here comes Ava to help. Hang on, kid. So we're going to take each section and just kind of knead it and roll it out until you have a nice little bun shape. And then we'll set it on the tray. Okay, Ava, you can do this one.
Okay.
Roll it into a bun shape. Squish it on the counter.
Okay.
Well, you can keep working on that. I'm going to put it on here. When you're ready, are you ready to put it in? Okay. Well, it's been 30 minutes and Ava is still working on her bun over here. Our buns are still doing their second rise, but we're not going to touch them at this point. We are going to preheat the oven to 400.
To 300.
And then we will come back to do these in 30 minutes. Okay, it's been an hour. Ava's finishing up her bun. You gonna stick it on here, Ava?
Mm-hmm.
Put it on the pan. Good job. Well, I accidentally deflated one, but we're going to brush either oil or...
Sorry, I'm having trouble hearing. Can you say that again?
Alexa, no one was talking to you.
I'm happy to hear how I can improve. You can always say, I have feedback.
So if you were going to add sesame seeds or poppy seeds, this is the time that you would sprinkle them on.
Oven hot.
Okay. And those are going to go in for 12 to 13 minutes. Here they are, fresh out of the oven.
Can I help? Can I help?
Want to help?
Yeah.
Okay, pick up your bowl. So there's no life underneath.